Recently I had a brother send me a link to a video by Brother David Daniels on the Nestle's text. And Brother David Daniels, if you don't know, he's from Chick Publications. Heard too that Brother Jack Chick, has gone home to be with the Lord now. So it's always sad. It's kind of a bittersweet thing when you hear a great saint that has died and gone home to be with the Lord. It's sad to see him go, but yet, they're absent from the body, present with the Lord. So Brother Jack Chick has influenced a lot of people, myself included. Great man. But David Daniels, out there at Chick Publications, he brought up a very interesting thing. And I had to look it up myself to confirm what he was saying. I thought, well, he's showing it. I think he's probably right, and of course he was. But changes in the Nestle's text. Very interesting. The Nestle's text, right here, I have the 28th in this hand, the 27th in this one. The Nestle's text, if you're new to the whole Bible version issue, essentially, way back to when the Bible was being written, Paul spoke at one point about, we are not as many which corrupt the word of God. He's talking about the Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, about being troubled by letter as from us. People were counterfeiting scriptures as they were being written, literally. So you look at the Acts chapter 11, verse 26, Antioch is where they were first called Christians. And yet Alexandria, Egypt, they're being persecuted. There were scholars from Alexandria, people from Alexandria, Egypt there that were there to stone Stephen in Acts chapter 7. So Alexandria is not a good place. Christians were never organizing there and doing great works there. They were from Antioch in Syria. What's the importance of that? Well, the Syrian text, this one right here, the Textus Receptus, this one here is based on over 99% of all extant Greek manuscripts. In other words, if you find a manuscript someplace, it's going to agree here. Okay? This has been used by the Greek Orthodox system, and Bible believers have primarily used this text, and I say primarily because translation is not an exact science of you can take it from this language directly into that language. There are words that have to be changed, added, whatever else, and you can still have a translation made that's just as good as the Greek or Hebrew. All right? There's translations all throughout the Bible in the original autographs, so don't tell me, oh, no translation can be inspired. Not true. That's one of the lies of the Alexandrian perverts, the perverted scholarship that comes out of there. This is the received text. Textus Receptus means in Latin received text. If you're an Orthodox type of Christian, and I don't mean Greek Orthodox necessarily, I'm saying a good, somebody that would believe the Bible, whatever, this is the text that's always been used by Christians. This one here, this text here, the Nestle's type text, is based on the minority of extant Greek manuscripts. In other words, when you have certain readings that are different and things between King James Bible and the new versions are getting their readings from here. This is the Roman Catholic Church's text that they have used, the Alexandrian type text. It goes way back to a school of philosophy in Egypt, all right, where they were writing and rewriting the Bible and changing things. They didn't like the deity of Jesus, so, Jesus being God, so they'd take out in 1 Timothy 3:16, God was manifest in the flesh, and they'd say, he who appeared in a body or something. They were making changes to the text, to the scriptures, and they were taking verses out. And then they come along, and these people that stand by this will claim that the Textus Receptus people added verses. When you hear about the NIV taking verses out, they'll say, well, we didn't take them out, we just had the original text as it is. It's kind of funny because their big argument is they say, well, we have the oldest and best. Well, first of all, that's not true. There have been many manuscripts over on this side that have been found in recent years that have debunked their original claims of older and better manuscripts. And you study what the older and better manuscripts are, the two big ones, Codices B and Aleph, and I know this is detailed stuff. If you've never heard of this, you're probably going, what on earth are you saying? Are you still speaking English? Their two biggest ones that they'll talk about, the two oldest and best manuscripts, there's pretty good proof that they're forgeries. That they're not from the 4th century. They're actually forgeries. And David Daniels has some really good stuff on that. I suggest watching his videos to show you that, in particular, the Sinaiticus or Sinaiticus, however you want to say it, was a forgery. The one that Constantine von Tischendorf found in the garbage at St. Catherine's Monastery on the Sinai Peninsula. Pretty good proof that it was just a forgery, that a man wrote it back then in the 1800s. That does not date back to the 4th century. So, but here's the interesting thing about this. There are thousands upon thousands of Greek manuscripts that they find, and sometimes it's just a little piece of a paper. When you watch David Daniels' video, I'm going to put the link in the description box. When you watch it, you'll see his proof of this. I mean, it's literally just like a little part of the upper part of the page of this manuscript. And they're adding words in there. They're assuming, they make a whole lot of assumptions. Well, the writing style looks similar to this over here, so we can date the antiquity based upon the writing style. And then you find out that paleography, I think it's what it's called, that science, was actually created by the Jesuits, as well as some other Roman Catholics. So Jesuits will create science, so to speak, to prove certain things that the Catholic Church teaches to be true. They rewrite history to prove history. And I'm not lying. It's amazing. But what's been going on now is you have this over here, even though the Catholic Church has tried to destroy this text here has been preserved by Christians. The Catholic Church has tried to burn these things and whatever else, and it's just incredible. And yet it still has been preserved. So, really, really something. But this text over here, there are over, I forget what the actual number is right now. I know it was like 5,200 and something Greek manuscripts that line up with the Textus Receptus, and 45 that line up here. Now do your math. That's less than 1% of the Greek manuscripts in the world will line up over here. 99+% over here with the Textus Receptus. So this, by many people, has been called not only the Textus Receptus, but the majority Greek text. Okay? This is a big issue. I could go off on this for a long, long time. But what's been happening is here, this one here, what you have is, I can't zoom in right now. I think my remote, the battery's dead. Yep, dead. But what you have here is you have the text up here in Greek, and then down here is what they call the critical apparatus. In other words, this manuscript has it, this manuscript doesn't, this one has it. They put where they get the support for this writing up here, the scripture up here, in which manuscripts it's coming from. Now, David Daniels shows this in great detail. Like I said, I can't show it too well right now, but if you look at down here in the critical apparatus, you will see an M. It's kind of like a stylized M, meaning majority text. All right. But, and you know, I've showed this thing in different studies too, by the way. The 27th edition, in the very beginning, it says that it's made under the supervision of the Vatican. A Jesuit cardinal, Carlo Maria Martini, sat on the board of editors. All right. And the others, you know, Curtilon and you know, these other people, they're all liberals as well, not even saved. So that one says majority text, the 27th edition. The newest 28th edition comes out, and they've taken out, in certain places, they've taken out majority, and now they have BYZ, Byzantine. So now what they're doing is, again, they're rewriting history. And they're coming along and they're saying it's no longer the majority text, it's just a Byzantine text. And you'll hear them say these lies, like they'll say, it's a partial truth, I'll say it that way. They'll say, Erasmus only had a few late manuscripts, leading the person to believe that there's not really that much Greek text support for the King James Bible, because Erasmus he started the, you know, Greek text basically that eventually became the Textus Receptus, which is, you know, he compiled it, you know, from better manuscripts and things. Not this one, excuse me, this one. But and what they'll do is they'll say Erasmus only had a few late Greek manuscripts, and thereby leaving the hearer to think, well, oh wow, the King James is only based on a few late manuscripts, not early manuscripts like the Catholic Nestles here. And well, what they don't tell you is Erasmus used late manuscripts, and he only used a few of them. Why? Well, because you pick the ones that are in the best shape. You don't pick the most ancient Greek manuscripts that you can find, and you would pick ones that are newer because you don't want to defile the really, really old ones. You know, it'd be like me saying, you know, I have a King James Bible down here in this, my one, actually put it in a little tote now. You know, I'm trying to keep them safe, but it's from 1814. Now, I should be preaching from that instead of my 2000, and probably this is about maybe 2002 when I bought this King James Bible, this Cambridge. You know, Brian Denlinger only prepares his sermons from a newer edition of the King James. What does that prove? It proves I'm going to preserve my old one that I have, my old, you know, really, really old, you know, 200-year-old, you know, Bibles. I'm not going to use those to prepare sermons. I'm going to use my new one. All right? That's what Erasmus did. Erasmus didn't need to go back and find the oldest and best manuscript, you know, and the very oldest and ancient, just barely touch it and it's falling apart and things, you know. Use the newer ones that line up with the old ones, see? But see, they don't tell people that. And what they're doing now is they're saying, with this Byzantine thing, they are purposefully changing the argument to now it's no longer majority. It's just Byzantine. Very, very clever what these Jesuits are doing. And it's the Jesuits that are involved. Again, I'm not, you people, you think the Jesuits are behind everything. Well, you know, when I see a guy there involved in it, like Carlo Maria Martini and S.J. behind his name, that means Society of Jesus. That means he's a Jesuit. So you say you're conspiratorial. Yes, the Catholic Church makes me that way. You know, I mean, the Jesuits come out, their intended purpose, way back in the 16th century when they were founded, their intended purpose is the Counter-Reformation, to bring all people back to Roman Catholicism. What better way to bring them back to Roman Catholicism than to take away the received text, the one that has power, and give them the false minority Greek text from Egypt that God will not bless. God has never used the Egyptian Bible. God uses the Syrian. There are two different Bibles. Again, you know, that's something a lot of people don't realize. They don't understand. They think, well, the King James Bible is kind of Old English, Elizabethan English, and the NIV, the ESV, or whatever else, they're based on newer scholarship and more modern English. That's not the truth at all. That is a lie. The new versions are based upon Roman Catholic Greek texts. And people say, oh, Erasmus was a Roman Catholic, wasn't he? Yeah, okay. Then the Catholic Church surely would have used their greatest scholars' Greek text, wouldn't they? To all you New Version supporters, name one Bible version that the Catholic Church used the Textus Receptus on. Name me one. And it's funny too because, oh, you know, these new versions, they have better, more modern readings and better scholarship and everything. Funny too because in 1582, the Jesuits created their own English translation called the Rheims New Testament. 1610 came out the Old Testament, the Dewey, in 1610, so it was the Douay-Rheims. Came out 1 year before the King James Bible, and yet that Douay-Rheims translation has a lot of the more modern readings, you know, in it before the King James Bible came out. You understand what I'm saying? The King James Bible comes out a year after this Douay-Rheims. The Douay-Rheims has a lot of the new readings that the NIV has in it, or the New American Standard, or whatever else. It's not new Bibles. They're Catholic Bibles. They're Vatican versions. Please understand that. If you're using one of these new versions, God's not going to bless it. They're false Bibles. They're satanic, corrupt perversions. All right? But watch David Daniels' video. He's going to get into a lot more of the details and things like that. I would suggest subscribing to his channel if you really want to know more about the Bible version issue. He's got some really good stuff. And he's definitely more of this scholar than I am on this whole issue.